You guys out there? All right, on. How are you this morning? You heard about flocking, right? You heard all about flocking. You all heard all about being unreasonable. How many of you out there are unreasonable? Just a few of you? Really? Okay, let's do this again. How many of you out there are unreasonable? All right, that's a little better. Well, let's just jump to the first slide. How about that? Let's loosen them up a little bit. Start out with a little something funny. So this really is an innovative approach, but I'm afraid we can't consider it. It's never been done before. Isn't that kind of what Robert was singing about? And what he meant and mentioned in one of his stanzas was like cell phones. You know, there was a time when, and I would say my grandparents, if you were to ask my grandparents when they were young parents, about this thing that we carry in our purse, in our pocket, and we have access to anything, anywhere. We could book flights, we can schedule appointments, we can call people from all over the world, we can reply to emails, we can pull up spreadsheets. I'm almost positive my grandparents would have looked at me and said, that's unreasonable. That's impossible. So I have a question for you. When was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you did something for the first time? Was it this week? Raise your hand if it was this week. Was it yesterday? Raise your hand if it was yesterday. Right on. So really take that in. I want you to bring to mind, and it doesn't have to be the last time you did something for the first time. It can be the last thing you remember doing something for the first time. Bring that into your conscious awareness right now. What did it feel like? I mean, we know it felt like something different than you'd ever felt before because you'd never done it before, right? But what did it feel like? And what were some of those feelings? Just anybody, shout them out. What was that? Scary. Yeah, excited. A little butterfly-like. Inspired. What else?
Can't wait.
Can't wait. Enthusiasm, anticipation. Fun.
Daring.
What, daring? Was that it? Daring? Yeah. Absolutely. Skeptical, absolutely. Yeah, this is a really innovative approach, but I'm afraid we can't consider it. It's never been done before. Wow. Okay, so truth time. Time to get real. How many of us have that spark of divine expression come alive within us all the time, daily, and we tell ourselves that? Okay, I see one hand. I see one person being honest here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes not, right? Or we wouldn't have those last time we had a first experience doing something. But a lot of times, this can get us, or can keep us from truly jumping into that beautiful creative expression that we know that we are. And what is it that we're afraid of? You know, I know there's a lot of teens in the audience today, in the congregation today. And, you know, graduation parties are going on all over the place this week. I went to a graduation party of one of our teens yesterday. And so I listened to some commencement speeches. And I listened to a commencement speech that Ellen DeGeneres gave. Did you all listen to that? How many? Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? And the thing is for those of us that are older, we remember her having her own show, not her talk show, but the other show that went for 6 years. And it was like just a regular nighttime show. I don't know what you call those kind of, it was a sitcom. It was just a regular old sitcom where she was the lead in it. And she said in her commencement speech, she said, you know, during that period of years when I was in that sitcom being the lead role, she said, I was living with so much shame and so much fear because she wasn't being honest about who she was. She didn't feel like her life was in integrity with who she really was. And she said she got to the point where she couldn't live that way. And she asked herself, what's the worst thing that could happen? And her answer was, well, you could lose your career. That was what she came up with. What's the worst thing that could happen? But she realized that she couldn't live that way, so she had to come out and be in integrity. And she came out in her show, and there's a little clip that they showed in her commencement speech where she actually came out. So her character in the show, which I think her character was named Ellen, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, it was her. It was the Ellen show, thank you, dear. So she comes out and she just tells her friend, I'm gay. You know, she finally just let herself be who she was. And let herself be okay with it. Now, she said the worst thing that could have happened to her happened. She lost her career. They canceled the show after 6 years and didn't even bother to tell her. She had to read about it in the newspaper. And she said she got no phone calls for 3 years from no one in the showbiz. Now, we all know how famous and popular and successful she is right now, right? So after 3 years, she got the call to do her own talk show. But there's something that happened within her that in this commencement speech, she was telling everybody else. She was basically saying that her life was good. She had her own show, for heaven's sakes. But it wasn't really her life, or it wasn't all of who she was. And when she stepped into a greater realization and went into integrity of who she was, her life truly blossomed and took off and became even greater than she could have ever truly imagined. But she said something else happened in those 3 years that she wasn't working in the career of her choice. She said, although I never got any phone calls in showbiz, I got tons of letters. Tons of letters from people, from teenagers who were considering committing suicide because they too were living out of integrity and having to feel so much shame. And they said, you provided me with hope. You showed us that this is possible. You see, Ellen did something that had never been done before, at least in that way. And she said that it was important for her to lose everything because she found out that the most important thing is to be true to yourself because she knows who she is. She has nothing to hide. I think that's why her talk show now is so successful. She doesn't cover anything up. She's just right there. She does it. She lives her life. She's in integrity. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing. So we get these technological advances and you know, everything that you can possibly dream of because of, like, Robert's song. There's always these records to break. There's always these new ideas to act on. Yet when we step into this judgment of ourselves and being afraid of being judged for who we are or for even having an innovative idea. How many of you have been afraid to even share your idea because you were afraid of being judged for having an innovative idea? Yeah, right on. So the idea around today, it's that spark. You know, we're going to move through this experience this morning. We know that there is only energy. We know that the universe is constantly expanding. We know that within us is this beautiful drive and spark to constantly expand our conscious awareness of the truth of who we really are. And we know that takes place on a daily, weekly, annually basis. We talk about it here a lot. And we also have talked about what happens when we try to put the kibosh on that, when we try to put a stopper in it, when we try to stagnate it out of fear of judgment or fear of failure or whatever it is that's bringing up our fear. What happens when that happens? So I know some of you were nodding your head. We know what that feels like, right? What's it feel like? When we stop our evolution, when we stop our creativity. What does that feel like? What? Suffocating. It does feel suffocating. It's painful. It's painful. It's painful for me. Anybody else? It's sad. Frustrating. Majorly frustrating. Unnatural. A lot of high anxiety. I find myself when I'm highly anxious, I'm not be an integrity of the truth of my being. There's something there for me to become aware of, for maybe me to unblock, because there's a block going on. So let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, I already asked this one. So let's go to the next slide. So this spark, which burns at the center of our own soul, is caught from the living and eternal flame of spirit. Ernest Holmes said that. It is the divine in expression. Let's go to the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. God moves upon God. This is the starting point of creation. Every time one conceives of an idea, it is God expressing itself. So where we're going with that is the true description and explanation of what that means. And so let's go to the next slide, because that's the explanation. Here we go. God is consciousness, not creator. God is the source of creation itself. It is not independent of you. It is the totality of everything. So when I call myself God, I am not talking about my personal self. I'm talking about the expression of the God self that resides and rests within me. The verb, the energy, not the noun. Once you think God is a noun, a person, a place, or a thing, you separate yourself from it and immediately become a limited being. That's what separates the believer's religion from the knower's spiritual. So you see, our first principle in religious science is one of oneness. It's unification. And we believe that this energy of the divine expressing itself is connecting everything. And so if there's ever a time when we place our understanding of the divine into a noun, we have immediately created separation, which is not possible. But that separation takes place within our own personal self. And so then, when we create that sense of separation within our personal self, what happens? That's where the blockage comes into our creativity. That's where the frustration comes, and the anxiety, and the sadness, and all those other things that we just shared happens when we block our own creative flow. And a lot of times, and most of the time, I'd have to say, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're choosing to take that on. I'm choosing to believe that this insightful new idea or this new expression of myself that I'm being so beautifully pulled by this incredible vision, and I think, oh my God, there's no way I can do that. I'm not going to be supported, or what if I fail, or what if I look like a complete idiot? You see, that's my choice to temporarily forget that it's all God. It's all the divine expressing through us. And then there's this time, there's this beautiful time, and I'm going to get to it here. Let me pick the right slide. Okay, it's my 14, so I don't know what number it is for you. But then there's this time that the object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. So it's that time where that incredible push, that incredible beautiful expression of your expansiveness just can't help itself and must sing and must create and must share. And it's at that time that we can push through that barrier and blockage of fear, of doubt, of false belief, of lack. You guys been there before? You know what it feels like, right? What's it feel like? What's it feel like?
Scary.
It feels scary. True enough. True dat. It does feel scary. There's other things that it feels too, though. What is satisfying?
Exciting.
Exhilarating, exciting,
Timeless.
timeless. Absolutely timeless. Oh my God, to me it's like I become one with all of the universe. It's like I've lost the sense of my little self and I've blended in with the most magnificent feeling and expression there is ever to be known and experienced. So that last time you did something new, was a little bit of that in there for you? I'm seeing some heads nod. Yes, a little bit of that was in there for you. And then there's this magical thing when we choose, because remember I said it's a choice, to live more from that element. Because here we go in the next quote here. The one thing that you have that nobody else has is you. Your voice, your mind, your story, your vision. So write and draw and build and play and dance and live only as you can. That's what Ellen decided to do, and look at her life. I'd call her a success, wouldn't you? There's somebody else that gave a commencement speech. You guys remember Will Ferrell? He was the character of the elf, right? Well, you know, and he got his big break when he was asked to join Saturday Night Live. Well, he says in his commencement address, I graduated. He went to South California University. When he graduated, he said, did I immediately get a job at ESPN? He said, no. I immediately moved back in with my mother for the next 2 years and tried to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life after he graduated from college. And he said, and while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, I just kind of did what I wanted to do. He really loved improv, and he really loved signing up for those little amateur stand-up experiences, and he was having such a good time doing that he didn't really even notice that people liked what he was doing. He was just doing it because he liked it. So he said he saw it as throwing darts at a dartboard. He just kept throwing darts at a dartboard. He just kept playing the game of what he loved to do. And he said, and in 6 weeks' time, in a time period of 6 weeks, these folks from Saturday Night Live came out, saw him, heard him, came out twice again, gave him an audition, interviewed him twice after that, and offered him the job to be on Saturday Night Live. Wow, right? And then we now can see what's happened to him in his career. But this is what he says about this. And he also says this, which I think is super important for us to keep in mind. He did get this note from someone that said, you were the most annoying newcomer to Saturday Night Live. It was a note like, you're not very good and you're not doing very good. So he put it on the wall of his office, and he promised himself he would not read any more reviews. But he put that one up to remind himself that not everybody's going to like his style. Not everybody's going to like what he has to say. Not everybody's going to resonate with his particular type of professionalism. But that's not why he was doing it. It was to make everybody like his style. He was doing it because it was fun for him and because it made him happy and he felt like he was in the flow. And then he said, after not reading any of those reviews, he says, I was too busy continuing to throw those darts at the dartboard. I was too busy just doing what I loved and saying yes to what made my heart sing and made me want to dance. And he says, and I don't consider any of that my definition of success. He said, my definition of success is his 16-and-a-half-year marriage to his beautiful wife. And his 3 beautiful sons that he says he has the privilege of being a father to every day. So you see, what I think is just bizarre and mind-boggling to me is this. We all tend to buy into this culture and society that the end-all be-all is to become successful and to get on a stage and to be known and to make lots of money and to be on the cover of magazines. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Yet, over and over again, if you were to talk to people that have experienced that type of fame, most of them will tell you what Will Ferrell just said. And then we are mourning the passing of one of the greatest singers of grunge rock this week. Can somebody please tell me his name, because I didn't write it down. Chris Cornell. He passed away right before doing a concert earlier this week. And there was a band that my husband Tony knew him through that I didn't really know. I knew him from the other one. Help me out. Soundgarden. Thank you. Apparently my dictionary in my head has decided to be on vacation this morning. But there's a band that he was in before Soundgarden. What was that called?
Alice Cooper?
No. You guys know? I listened to the songs all weekend long, so I'm sorry I can't remember. But in that band, he wrote a song about suicide. And wrote all about it, like from the perspective of somebody. And then he took his own life this week. And this is somebody that was extremely talented and was in several bands and had cut many records, many albums. And he was looked up to in the music world of young budding musicians and singer-songwriters. So my whole point to all of this is this. Because we talked about what happens when you block your creativity, your flow, whether it's through fear or judgment or criticism or having a sense of separation because you temporarily forgot the truth of your being. And we said it's frustrating and it's sad and it's disappointing and it's all of those things. But this is really the goal. I mean, pretty much in almost every commencement speech I listen to now, this is what they're saying. And this is the goal of what that spark of creativity desires to have its way with us. That's what's being called forth. That's what we're here for. And then when we use this energy in that way, our ability to live and experience new things and to be in that place of magnificent passion and fulfillment and joy and all those things that you guys just described a little earlier, it just flows. It happens naturally. It's a beautiful state to live in. So how many of you guys want to do that all the time? How many of you do that all the time? I know many of you that do. Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's this progression that we're gonna go through here. Let's go back to slide 6. My Don Miguel quote. It was real colorful and pretty. So here's Don Miguel. We imagine and then we become. So we know it always starts with a thought. Do you all have a tendency to suppress your time and your opportunity to imagine? Good. I'm seeing a lot of people going like this. Sometimes it's not on the to-do list for the day, though, right? So sometimes weeks can go by. If I could ask you, when was the last time you daydreamed, what would you say? Was it yesterday? Was it this morning? Right on. Oh my God, I'm in a room full of incredible imaginers. That's so awesome. I love that. And of course we know that it all comes down to choice. We get a choice on how we choose to use our imagination. There's a saying that somebody was really arguing the fact that they lacked that ability, that somehow along the way when they were born, they did not get the ability to imagine. And the person they talked to said, really? Huh. Well, do you have children? Yes. And did they have curfews? Yes. So what happened if the children didn't show up at curfew time? What did you do? Oh my gosh. I imagine they got in a car accident or they done this or they done that. And they're like, yeah, you got an imagination, all right. You're just choosing to use it in a certain way. So we get to choose on how we use that powerful, incredible, divine expression of juice that flows through us all the time. We get a choice. And in the Science Mind magazine this month, I just loved when Foster pulled this out. I was like, oh, I hope he doesn't read the same thing I'm going to read, but no, it worked out perfectly. There is a really great article that Margaret Stortz wrote in this month's magazine. I am inviting all of you to check it out if you haven't. And there's a little snippet under Awakened Imagination that I want to share with you because she writes about during the middle of the 20th century, many students of spirituality enjoyed a wonderful teacher, lecturer, and author named Neville Goddard. Has anybody in here read any of Neville's work? Yes. Pretty awesome author and teacher. So he taught about the use of imagination. That was kind of his theme and his focus. And he believed that by using imagination, we have the power to be anything we believe. Now, where have we heard that before? I mean, Jesus said that, right? It is done unto us as we believe. Do you all believe that? And if you don't believe it, that's what's going to happen, right? Because it's done unto us as we believe. So, yes, so this is what he taught and what he believed. And in his book, Awakened Imagination, Neville tells a delightful story about himself. I think this is so cool because it's personal. And this story is this. As a young man in New York City, he wanted to spend the winter in Barbados. It was his birthplace and the place where he had spent much of his boyhood. But he was, as he said, without a nickel. He was a young man living in New York City and he didn't have a nickel. So he spoke with a friend and a mentor and learned a valuable lesson, for the man told him to imagine himself in Barbados, to not concern himself with any of the ways or means of getting him there. Just spend your time imagining yourself already there. What does it feel like? What's it smell like? What's it sound like? Where are you in Barbados? What are you doing in Barbados? What's the scenery look like and the landscape? All of that. Just have a ball imagining that you're in Barbados. So, his friend said that his imagination would devise the means best suited to realize itself. This is why we don't need to worry about the how, because little me, isn't as unlimited as the big old universe of infinite intelligence. So why on earth would I choose to limit myself to come up with a plan of how that is limited? I want to invest in an unlimited plan. So he goes on to say, the imagination itself would devise the means best suited to realize itself. Neville told of falling asleep for several nights with the assumption that he was in his father's house in Barbados. Within a month, he received a letter from his brother, who stated he had a strong desire to have the family together at Christmas, and enclosed was a ticket to Barbados. 2 days later, Neville was in Barbados. That's how it works. That really is how it works. And I get it. I get it. I see some of your faces out there. I get it. Like, oh, I've tried that and it really didn't work out that way. I didn't get my ticket to wherever in the mail. And my thing on that response is this. Our imagination is what devises the best possible experience for that to occur. And if we're taking it through comparison of our own mind, we're only able to compare it in the limited way that our mind and soul and body can embody and experience it. So the idea is to open ourselves up and tap in and tune into that unlimited divine energy of creative spark. And we do that by making the choice of applying our imagination in the direction of what we desire. Of what we desire to experience, of what we desire to feel, of what I desire to be in the midst of, environment-wise and with relationships with the people that resonate with me. And all of those wonderful new experiences. When was the last time you did something for the first time? And is that daily for you? Because I aspire it to be daily for me. It kind of is, but I'm kind of a wild child. God, y'all met my mom and grandma last week, and that poor woman. I am a bit of a wild child. I am not very practical, so I do a lot of new things all the time. Yet I have found that there's aspects of my life where I don't do new things. There's aspects of my life that I have already put in a box and duct taped it shut and said, it cannot change. So I'm looking at that now, because that beautiful desire to evolve and expand and have that spark of creation to have its way in my life, I really don't want any blocks or barriers to that. So I'm going to take that duct tape off. I'm going to unpack that box and I'm going to break it down and I'm going to get rid of it. And I invite you to do the same. And that's what we're here for. That's this beautiful teaching. Unpacking those boxes, breaking them down, saying bye to any thinking that's limited, like the first slide. You know, it said that was just a really awesome, inspiring, incredible new idea, but we just can't do it because it's never been done. And I say we have to do it because it's never been done. Amen. Amen to that. Thank you. I love it. Love it. So let's go to 10, my slide 10. So here's another level of this experience. Quantum science suggests the existence of many possible futures for each moment of our lives. Each future lies in a state of rest until it is awakened by choices made in the present. You see, what do you think would have been Neville's experience if he didn't choose to use his imagination to imagine being in Barbados? He may not have gotten that letter from his brother or ticket. Who knows? Who knows? But I do know, and I have felt certain turning points in my life where I had the opportunity to make lots of different choices. You guys had that experience too, I see. So, this to me is so incredibly pregnant with potential. Because when I start feeling those feelings that we talked about, of being blocked, anxiety, frustration, sadness, you know, those things that we talked about a minute ago when I asked the question. When I start feeling that, I remind myself of this. Hold up, hold up. There's not 10 or 100 different ways this could come out. There's an unlimited amount of ways this could come out. So what's my part in it? What is my part to play? Not to believe in the worst thing or to invest my energy in that which I don't want to experience, kind of like Foster's reading today. My part, my job is to picture Barbados if I want Barbados, to feel Barbados if I want Barbados. Oh, wow, what do we want to expand in? What in your life do you want expansion in? What do you want to feel more of? That's what you want to imagine. That's what you want to invest your juicy, wonderful, daydreaming time on. Anybody want to share one? What you got going on right now? Come on.
New business.
You guys have a dream, new business. And do you want to be more specific or not right now? Okay, new business. So we've got new business. So
New house.
okay, well, we'll go with new house here in a second. So Rhonda said new business, and so Rhonda's daydreaming, you know, she's got unlimited ways, unlimited avenues. So in her daydreaming, imagining time, she's daydreaming and imagining that new business and all the qualities that she wants in that new business, whatever that is. That's fun. New house. Yeah. So you get to be in that new house, be in it. Walk in the restroom. Do your business in the new house. Wash your hands in the new house. I'm serious. You guys are laughing at me. I am serious. You got to add a little humor to this. Drive your car in the garage of your new house if it has a garage. Whatever you want it to be, just imagine that. I saw you grinning, Robert. What you got going on?
New recording.
That's right. I knew you were working on that, but I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag. Robert's working on a new recording.
Spend all day daydreaming.
He spends all day daydreaming about that new recording, and I bet it's fun. And I bet you go to bed singing, and I bet you wake up singing. Absolutely. So there we have it, folks. There we have it. The future. Each future lies in a state of rest until it is awakened by our choices. What's your future? Because your future is 100% determined by your now, by where you're investing your now, right here, right now. And in the Science of Mind magazine, or no, not Science of Mind magazine, I already read that. David Aurelio out of Atlanta, Georgia says this: until you dream, there isn't a mold. Until you speak, there isn't a promise. And until you move, there isn't a path. So keep that in mind. Until you dream, a container is not created. Until you speak, a commitment's not been made. And until you move, a way has not been created, a path. So dream it, speak it, move it. We're doing that anyway, right? Right? So let's do it. Let's do it in creation, in that beautiful spark of creation that's unlimited that we know we're about doing here. And it's so funny. You know, one of my favorite shows in the world, how many of y'all know what that is? Northern Exposure, thank you. Favorite, I mean, each episode is a spiritual experience. I kid you not. I love it. And in this one episode is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. Joel, Dr. Fleischman, you know, he's having to serve in this little town, Sicily, Alaska, against his wishes. And he had given one of the elders of one of the tribes a cortisone shot to help her elbow. And it fixed her elbow, and she was so delighted that she gave him a goat. And he came to work one day, and there was a goat in his office eating the paper off of his desk, and he's like, "Why is there a goat in my office?" And Marilyn, his assistant, said, "Well, because you healed an elder in one of the tribes." And he's like, "Well, you take it. I don't want a goat. I don't know anything about taking care of goats." And Marilyn's like, "I can't take that goat. That's not right." And so he takes his goat home, and the goat's tearing up his house, and he's really not happy about this. So Mrs. Nuanuk is her name. And so he has a little meeting with Mrs. Nuanuk, and he's trying to be really sweet about it. He's like, "Thank you so much, and I know I so feel your appreciation, but I really can't keep this goat." Mrs. Nuanuk's like, "I see. We've insulted you. I did not do enough. The goat is not enough. I'm going to adopt you. I'm going to adopt you as one of my own and bring you into the tribe." And Joel's like, "Oh no," because he says he's a self-professed Jew from New York, you know. That's what he knows, that's the box he's put himself in, and he's really comfortable with that box. He doesn't want a different box. And he's telling Marilyn, his assistant, "How in the world am I going to be adopted by this tribe? You know, when you're with people and you have your own tribe, you got to know who you are. I barely know who I am. How am I going to be adopted by this tribe?" So he has to go through all these experiences to have this adoption take place. He has to give away all of his earthly possessions. Yes, he had a really hard time with that. And he's still got the goat. Keep in mind, the goat's still tearing up his house. Gives away all of his earthly possessions. Then he has to fast for like 72 hours. And then he has to go on a vision quest with Ed out in the middle of the woods at night at a full moon, having never done any of this before. But you see, as he progresses through this experience, all these new things that he's never done before, you see how he's growing and expanding. He's learning. He's realizing things. It's kind of like what Will Ferrell says. He says, "Enjoy the process of your search without succumbing to the pressure of the result." He says that you have to do and live like this because it allows us to grow in empathy and kindness, he says, which are the truest signs of emotional intelligence. So you see Joel Fleischman going through these experiences and really growing and expanding in his ability to have compassion and empathy. So by the end of the episode, he's walking his goat on a leash down the road, and he's named it, and they've become friends, and he has entered this whole new understanding of having a relationship with this goat. And he does get adopted by the tribe, and it all ends up very well. But there was so much to learn from all those new experiences that caused him to step outside of who he really was. And he was against it at first because he says, "I don't even barely know who I am. How can I be a part of a different tribe?" So do you know who you are? And do you know what kind of tribe you want to be a part of? It's so important to know that kind of before you start to daydream, because that makes a big difference on what you dream for the mold to be created, on what you speak for the promise to be created, on before you could move, before the path can be created. So know yourself. Know your tribe. Know what you want to be a part of. So I'm going to close it today by saying that all of creation is animated by the infinite light of God. The oneness indwelled within each being is a divine spark. Everything from the microscopic particle to the grandest galaxy is infused with this creative impulse. There is never any holding back. It's a continual unfolding artistry. This means we all have something distinctive to bring forth. It is our calling. It is our vision. It is our purpose. The sacred is perpetually creating through its creation, and we are its medium. God expressing as us. It's like Mother Teresa said, I am a pencil in the hand of God. So let's go to the very last slide, please. I'm going to do a little commercial here. So we have a really phenomenal experience happening after the service today. Our very own Dr. Kim Keene is doing a workshop on the power of energy and the power of chi. And she's going to do a little qigong, and she's just going to work with us on our chi. So I pulled up this slide. It says, the smooth, balanced flow of chi, your life force energy, is the single most important determinant to your health, vitality, and happiness. So as we know, it's always our choice on how we're going to choose to use our thoughts to dream and our words to make the promise and our movement and behavior to make that path. I know I want to be coming at it with the highest charged, best vibrating level of chi I can possibly do it. So I'm inviting all of us to stick around after Burrito Sunday and experience that with Dr. Kim. Thank you. Namaste.